Hello everybody. In the first part of this video, I'd just like to introduce you to a problem with science. Now you might think that we have everything pretty much sorted out in science, but there's a big problem in science, a very big problem, and if you don't tell anybody, they don't notice. So you might have noticed that if you look in a child's science book, there's just lots of different chapters, the weather over here, living things here, chemistry, the solar system over here, nothing that relates it. But this problem gets worse, much worse. When that child goes to university, gets a physics book, then you look for the solar system. Shock. It's not there. Now I thought the solar system was physics, something we understood. Newton and Einstein, surely. Gravity. No. And that's why it's not in the physics book. Neither's chemistry. But I thought that was just atomic particles. I thought we understood atoms. It's just electromagnetic forces, isn't it? No. That's why it's not in the physics book. It's much more complex than that. And then we get to living things. Well, surely that's just atoms, atomic gradients inside a cell, isn't it? No, it's much more complex than that. We can't explain it using physics. And what about social behaviour of animals, or rainforests, or people? Doesn't make any sense. And there's a big contradiction in physics itself. And that's the fact that in classical physics I've got deterministic bodies that I know when they're going to be. I know the moon will go around the earth in a month, it'll be back in the same place, the earth goes around the sun, it's all deterministic. At the quantum level, the atomic level, I've got things which are random. The uncertainty principle, probabilistic, and sometimes deterministic. And that's a contradiction. I've got two different laws of physics. It's a mess. A very big mess. And this mess was first noticed by Isaac Newton 300 years ago. Sure, he writes his equations for gravity, and they work for the Earth and the Moon, but then he gets the shock of his life. If the Earth had two moons, his equations don't work at all. It's all over. And he declares it must be an act of God. Nobody can understand this. Move on 100 years, we get to Laplace, the French mathematician. And he writes the equations that do describe how the solar system shares out the gravity. There's his equation, but there's something everybody didn't notice. When you look at that equation, there's no reference to gravity. I thought the solar system must be gravity, isn't it? It's got gravity to make it move. That's it. The solar system is a clock. And how does a clock make itself from rubble? The problem's getting worse. Einstein, he doesn't really help. He says, well, gravity is actually just a relationship between space-time and matter energy, and these two are the same thing. This is special relativity, and the relationship between this and this is called general relativity. Well, that just describes gravity, but gravity can't make a clock. The fundamental forces of physics cannot make clocks. They only have something called the second law of thermodynamics, which goes in the other direction, into ever more disorder. I need a mechanism that goes back this way, so I can describe things like chemistry, which becomes ever more complex, living things. Over to quantum mechanics. This is where things get really messy. When a particle is just by itself, we know it exists as a wave. And that wave is deterministic, just the same as the rest of physics. But when you try to measure where that wave is, it flips over into something which is probabilistic, just like popping a soap bubble. It changes its state of existence from a bubble into a drop, and I don't know where that drop is going to be, and then I get another evolution of that drop as it continues. We can't have probabilistic in classical mechanics, or can we? Remember this problem up here? Just 3 bodies in space, and deterministic physics is all over. But we ignore this problem because it's not famous. That's how the human brain works. Quantum mechanics is famous. Now, how can we solve this problem? We know that quantum mechanics is all correct. We know that relativity, gravity, is all correct. I've got forces here, fundamental forces for gravity. Forces that make things, like a star, or a planet, or an object. I've got forces down here, which is all quantized quantities, exact quantities of force. When we say +1, -1 inside an atom, it's a unit of force. This is all units, this is not. But remember, my 3-body problem for something complex, complexities, I've only got 2. We know the universe is complex. Reality that we see is complex. There's something missing. I need 3. I need something else that answers my question. Everybody's looking in physics. Stephen Hawking states that he is a self-confessed reductionist. And that means if I can just understand the physics, the missing part of physics, I'll be able to determine what's going to happen in the universe. Roger Penrose, the English physicist, calls it a missing part of physics. Brian Greene calls it the hidden reality. So it's a complete mess. It's inconsistent. Science cannot be inconsistent. But here's the problem. If we know this and this is correct, the problem must be with us, the way that we look at it, the way that we say it. We think in language, we understand things in language, so if we're saying it incorrectly, we can't understand it. There must be something else which gives an explanation for reality. It's things that go from simple to ever more complex. They're not deterministic. They have outcomes that generate more outcomes. Well, here's the problem. If you insist that it must all be only physics, that's the problem. There is no logic which states the universe can only be the fundamental laws. It only works, gravity, for 2 bodies. That's very fundamental. It stops back there. So let's leave the fundamental laws back there. And down at the atomic level, very, very quickly, it flips over into relationships that give us chemistry. Fundamental laws, the atomic forces, it's all over. But there is some new mathematics. The mathematics of non-linear, non-deterministic, messy, probabilistic chaos, non-linear dynamics. Maybe the answers are in here, but in here there's no mention of the fundamental laws of nature. So if I do this, if I take physics down from the top and say that's the all-encompassing umbrella under which everything else must be, and I put mathematics at the top. Mathematics is the only discipline of science which is self-consistent by definition. It cannot have any part which is inconsistent with any other part. The universe can. I can have physics, quantum physics, chemistry, biology, social systems, economies, cities, messy. If I just put mathematics as the big umbrella, my inconsistencies, my contradictions evaporate. Now, if what I am saying is true, there must be a mathematical equation which shows equivalence. The same thing. Just like E equals mc squared, these two are the same thing. Equivalence means that and that are the same thing. There must be a little mathematical equation that shows that the whole of mathematics works on exactly the same principle as the whole of the universe. The universe brings itself into existence. It all starts as non-material forces and energy. And I can explain how those forces alone change themselves into material. If I look inside a rock, I've just got things we call quarks and electrons. They have no volume. But if you bring together repelling forces, they stop and I get volume where I had no volume, just using forces. A star, I don't say it's made by gravity. The star is making elements in the middle, and when you force elements together, they release energy by the strong and weak nuclear force that holds that star up against gravity. It's a pair, it's a duality. And a planet, simply pull together forces with gravity, the forces repel, and I get something from nothing. But then I have to leave my fundamental structures and simple behavior, just the Earth and the Moon, and explain the whole of the rest of reality. And I need a new equation, a little mathematical equation that describes mathematics and the universe. So if you want to see the equation and learn how to use it, catch us in part 2.